Welcome to today's Explainer. We've got a really complex web to untangle today, so let's just dive right in. We're going to unpack an explosive history of geopolitical proxy wars, specifically tracing the origins and evolution of Al-Qaeda. We'll be looking directly at the historical sequence of events to figure out exactly how global superpower conflicts ended up giving rise to one of the most infamous militant organizations in modern history. To understand how this all started, we actually have to go back to a sunny winter afternoon on November 24, 1989, in Peshawar, Pakistan. Picture the scene. A man is driving to the mosque for Friday prayers with his two sons. The streets are completely bustling. And then suddenly, a planted car bomb detonates. The man and his sons are killed instantly. That man was Sheikh Yusuf Abdullah Azzam, and it's no exaggeration to say his assassination that day literally changed the course of history.
You see, Azzam was widely known as the godfather of jihad, and his sudden death left a massive power vacuum. So the central mystery we're exploring today is this. How exactly did the death of this one specific figure trigger a chain of events that culminated in the creation of Al-Qaeda and, ultimately, the 9/11 attacks? Section 1, the Cold War proxy.
To truly understand the scale of what we're talking about here, we have to look at a staggering number, $2 billion. Back in 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and the United States saw a major strategic opportunity. The CIA launched a covert mission known as Operation Cyclone. Over time, they funneled an estimated $2 billion in funding and weapons to the local Afghan fighters, who were known as the mujahideen. But here's the catch. To really rally these forces, the conflict was framed by its backers not just as a territorial defense, but as a strict religious duty, a defense of Islam against the invading Soviets.
And it's fascinating to see how state actors collaborated behind the scenes to make this happen. The United States provided vital intelligence, a ton of funding, and global political backing. Saudi Arabia then matched this with immense financial support of its own. Meanwhile, Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, opened its doors to provide the actual base of operations and the crucial on-the-ground training. So together, these three players inadvertently laid the logistical and the ideological foundation for modern Islamic militancy.
Section 2. The birth of Maktab al-Khidmat. Because the U.S. obviously couldn't be directly involved on the ground, intermediate organizations formed to recruit foreign fighters for the cause. The crucial point here is who actually formed them. In 1984, over in Peshawar, three key figures united to form a group called Maktab al-Khidmat. First, you have Abdullah Azzam, the Palestinian scholar and foundational architect of the movement we talked about earlier. Second, Osama bin Laden, a wealthy Saudi contractor who used his incredibly deep pockets and royal family connections to fund the operation. And third, Ayman al-Zawahiri, an Egyptian surgeon and former prisoner who was released specifically so he could join the Afghan War.
Okay, get this. Here is a truly fascinating and honestly deeply ironic piece of history. To raise funds and recruit fighters, Abdullah Azzam actually toured the United States. He successfully set up branches of Maktab al-Khidmat in 33 different U.S. cities. Over there, it operated under the English name the Arab Services Bureau. This meant the organization was actively recruiting and raising funds right on American soil, entirely with the tacit approval of U.S. apparatus that was just eager to defeat the Soviet Union.
Section 3. The formation of Al-Qaeda. As the war dragged on, Osama bin Laden became incredibly popular among the local fighters. He was out there on the ground, actively fighting in guerrilla operations. But this rising clout led to a massive ideological split that ultimately tore the leadership apart. On one side, we have Abdullah Azzam's original vision. He wanted a defensive strategy, focused strictly on the localized Afghan war, mostly providing logistical and financial support. But on the other side, Ayman al-Zawahiri pushed a highly offensive strategy. He wanted to use their growing network for global military operations. According to the sources, Zawahiri actively manipulated bin Laden, slowly pulling him away from Azzam's localized vision and steering him toward this much more aggressive global agenda.
And that brings us to August 11, 1988. Bin Laden and Zawahiri officially broke away from Azzam's organization to form a brand new group, Al-Qaeda, which translates to the base. Shortly after this huge fracture, in early 1989, the Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan. And then, as we discussed at the very beginning of this explainer, Azzam was mysteriously assassinated later that same year.
Section 4. Enmity with Anarcha.
So you might be wondering, how does an organization that benefited so heavily from Western backing suddenly turn its sights on its former indirect supporters?
Well, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait in 1990, Osama bin Laden offered his seasoned fighters to defend Saudi Arabia. But the Saudi monarchy rejected him. Instead, they invited U.S. troops onto Saudi soil. Bin Laden was absolutely outraged by the presence of non-Muslim troops on Holy Land. His vocal criticism got him expelled from Saudi Arabia in 1991. He fled to Sudan, but under immense U.S. pressure, he was stripped of his citizenship, lost his $7 million family stipend, and was expelled again in 1996, this time back to Afghanistan. Financially ruined and utterly enraged, bin Laden issued a fatwa, a religious decree, officially declaring war against the United States in August 1996.
Following that falling out, the terror campaign rapidly escalated. There was an early attempt to bomb the World Trade Center back in 1993. This was followed by devastating bombings of American embassies. Ultimately, operating safely out of Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, this violent trajectory culminated in the horrific, world-changing attacks on the Twin Towers on September 11, 2001.
Section 5. The Impact on India. While the attacks on America are globally recognized, we really can't overlook how al-Qaeda's early networking had a profound and deadly impact on South Asia as well. Their massive financial network deeply influenced regional militancy. For example, Lashkar-e-Taiba was founded in the mid-80s with direct funding from Osama bin Laden. That is the exact same group responsible for the tragic 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. Furthermore, Masood Azhar, the leader of Jaish-e-Mohammed, directly met with al-Qaeda operatives in 1992 to secure funding for militant operations in Kashmir. The roots of these ongoing regional conflicts are incredibly deeply intertwined with al-Qaeda's early days and their very deep pockets. Section 6. The Downfall of al-Qaeda. Following the 2001 attacks, the United States and its allies began a relentless, systematic dismantling of the organization's core leadership. In 2011, Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. forces in Abbottabad, Pakistan. At that point, Ayman al-Zawahiri took over the reins. But here's the thing, he completely lacked bin Laden's charisma and influence among the fighters. Under his frankly poor leadership throughout the 2010s, factions became highly disillusioned. Al-Qaeda in Iraq actually splintered off entirely to form ISIS, creating a brand new, ruthless global threat. Finally, in 2022, Zawahiri himself was killed in a U.S. drone strike, leaving the original core of al-Qaeda heavily fractured and significantly weakened. Fast forward to today, and the organization that once commanded international fear is mostly entangled in localized Middle Eastern civil wars, having lost much of its global relevance. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. As we see groups like ISIS occasionally attempting to resurge, will al-Qaeda ever revive its global network? Or has it been permanently relegated to the history books? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep analyzing these complex structures, and I will catch you next time.